I've been watching HBO Sports, and they have different documentaries over the years that talk about the rules changing and with the CTE going on, not only in football, but in boxing and hockey and all the different scientists and doctors trying to figure out ways to protect the player. And I look at the professional sports, and I look at basketball, I look at baseball, I look at hockey, I look at football. Those are the 4 top sports right now in all the professional sports. And then you go to UFC and boxing and all the different growth of sports. And boxing's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, but MMA has really grown in the last 30 years. And the rules, with baseball trying to try to change the rules with
the pitch clock.
The pitch clock in the back of the mound, and you talk about the rules that you're going to have robotic umpires calling strikes to balls.
You have a 3-batter thing now.
The 3-batter, situation, the rules, and then you go to the NFL. The rules, right? You can't hit a quarterback lower. You can't hit a quarterback above their waist. You can't hit them below their knees. You got to hit them in a certain spot, or you're going to get a penalty. Or defensive players not be able to grab onto an offensive player like a wide receiver in the open field anymore.
Yard, yeah.
With the different style of game and how the NFL wants to open up the game and the offense. There is no 2-line pass in hockey anymore. The goal nets are bigger and the pads are bigger and the new equipment is completely changed because they thought the speed of the game would change and there'll be more goal scoring, which it hasn't been. And then you go with basketball, with the rules that basketball has, that they brought the 3-point line a little bit in years and years ago, and now you look at it, the game has completely changed. Now the only way you could be successful in the NBA is shooting 3-point shots, and that's how the game is transitioned. There's no more Michael Jordan style of games anymore where people can dominate the game in all different ways of the game. It's one way or another. You want to be the superstar, really the charm of the league, and you see with LeBron James and what LeBron James has done, and he's not even a 3-point shooter, but he transitioned the game and he changed the game. Now 3 superstars can want to play together to be champion. The only way you can win championships if 2 or 3 superstars join forces in the NBA.
I saw something a while ago too, where I think they were tracking all the shot charts made throughout the season. I think only 5% of shots taken throughout the entire league was mid-range shots now. So it's either you go to the foul line, or you make a layup or dunk, or you shoot a 3 now.
Is this good for professional sports? And I know a lot of people want to argue these points till they're dead in the ground. And I know the game is transition, and the game has completely changed in all professional sports because of it. Because of the way the game has transitioned, the sports have changed. And that means fans have changed. I understand how the new millennials, they follow players. They don't follow teams anymore, which hurts the game. It really does. It hurts the game. It doesn't hurt the player. It doesn't hurt their product, their brand. As you know, LeBron James with LeBron James Media and what he does, not only on the court, but off the court. You talk about Tom Brady, who now is starting to transition his worth and his brand to the world because he's 43 years old and his game is completely almost over. So you look at all these superstar players starting to transition the game by building brands, as you know, with sneaker endorsements and jersey endorsements. But the NBA and the NHL and the NFL are still trying to find ways to make the game better. And is this making the game better by changing rules that have affected not only players, but organizations and the growth of the game, not only in this country, but throughout the world? Does that help the game? Has it helped the game? And to my understanding of what sports are, the games and the rules should not have changed. They've only should have gotten better. Now, I understand the CTE epidemic and all the different situations that we look at as the game has changed with the hits and the different helmets that they use and the different body shoulder pads and gloves and all the different things. As you know, with the NFL, they use these now gloves. These wide receivers use these gloves that actually the ball sticks. It's like a magnetic thing that sticks to their hands. Like Odell Beckham catching the ball with one hand. It makes it easier for them to grip the ball that NFL players did not have in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 60s, where I believe the wide receivers were better and more athletic and had better opportunities. And I'm not talking about speed-wise because the athleticism has gotten better in professional sports, but the game, the speed of the game has changed. Who's to say that the players like Jerry Rice and Joe Montana couldn't have fit in the game like a glove like they did in the 80s and the 90s?
Jerry Rice might get 3,000 yards in today's game.
So does the change of rules help the game of football, baseball, hockey, basketball? And the answer is no, it doesn't. What it does is it opens up endorsements. It opens up opportunities for the game to grow in their eyes by changing the different rules or changing the game for the better. It has not helped the game. It's making the game worse. Worse to watch, worse to communicate with your friends about, because there's really nothing to talk about. What are you going to talk about? You're going to talk about the bad call that the referee had in the fourth quarter instead of the whole game, because you're worried about the rules and the rule changing and really what affects the game as a whole. You don't care about what happened in the game, because the truth is your team lost the game because of a bad play call.
And a lot of fans will blame the refs because of that.
And I think that's the transition of the game, and the way the change of the game has really hurt the game of professional sports. And how you talk about the coronavirus and how they've canceled sports as a whole. Does this help sports when it comes back? It absolutely does. The only problem with this is right now is we haven't been away from sports this long as a community or as an organization, as a state or a country in forever. Since
World War II.
Since 1939. So you think about it now as a whole. Do you miss sports enough to know that when the rules and everybody complains about the rules and really the growth of the game because of the CBAs and the new charges that you have to pay to go and see those games and see those players, is it worth spending the money and going out there and watching your teams play, when the truth is it's really all about the player now? It's not about the team.
In the NBA, yeah.
It's not about the team. It's in every sport. It's not just the NBA.
It's a lot of it. It's a lot of it is the NBA. I'm just saying, you're right. It's happening in all sports, Joe. I'm just saying I think it's the biggest one in terms of a player league. Like, they'll follow the player wherever they go, kind of thing.
I think this is a huge problem, and I think not just the NBA and the NFL and all the sports, even college sports, the NCAA, they all have to figure out what the game needs to do for it to grow, then transition the way the rules are changing the game and ruining the game as a whole. Because I'll tell you this right now, as a baseball fan, I don't want to see a machine calling strikes.
Oh, God.
Behind the mound. I mean, behind the catcher. I don't want to see that. You know why? Because it changes the game, the way the game is played, the way the managers are going to call a hit and run, or call a play, or call an outfielder to come in to catch the ball, because you don't know if it's going to be a pop-up or a home run or somebody trying to drive the ball. These are all things that have changed the game. And that hasn't changed the game for the good. It's changed the game for the bad. And I think the rule changes have affected sports, not benefited for the sports. Yeah, it's benefited through the CBAs and the growth of what the millennials want to see. They want to see more points on the board, but because they play these fantasy games, and fantasy has completely changed everything in professional sports.
There's no defensive players in fantasy unless you do very advanced leagues.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge problem, because I think defense is the most important position to play if you want to be a championship, well-renowned team. And I'll tell you this right now. Say what you want about the Bill Belichick New England Patriots the last 20 years. The reason why they were so good all those years wasn't their offense. It was their timely defense in certain games, figuring things out, how to shut down the best wide receiver, the best tight end in the game, the best running back, the best player on the field. That is defensive calling. That's defensive play calling.
Against a lot of top offenses, too, in those years. The Eagles, obviously the Rams, obviously they cheated for that one, but they still held, even if they didn't, they probably still held them under 30 points. Obviously, Atlanta, Philly wasn't as much, and then the Rams recently. A lot of those were top offenses that were in there, and the Patriots just, the way they build their team, just figured that kind of thing out. Even though their stars, their bigger names, were more on offense.
Absolutely. But I think the transition of the game has really changed the growth of the sports. And then we talk about the growth of women coming into professional sports with men. And I'll tell you this right now. You're seeing women coaches coming up in the NFL. You're seeing women coaches coming up in the NBA. Eventually, women coaches are going to take over in professional sports. Say what you want. There will be 2 or 3 women in professional basketball coaching different organizations. You're going to see 2 or 3, possibly 4 women eventually taking over in the NFL and coaching in the NFL.
Now, how long do you think it'll take for them to become head coaches, you think? Because as of right now, they're all assistant coaches. The Cardinals were the first one to do it, and then it was Buffalo, I think Tampa.
Actually, the Jets were the first one.
Oh, they were? I thought it was Arizona. Okay.
It was the Jets.
All right, so it was the Jets, then Arizona. And obviously the Niners have one now. Then they just went to the Super Bowl. So that could help the leverage of that. So, again, right now they're assistant coaches. They're mostly offensive assistants or defensive assistants. They have a particular specialty. Would that take them a while to get to head coaches? Is it still another decade away kind of thing?
I don't think it's a decade away. I think it's a couple of years away. I think you're going to see an NBA coach very, very soon in the NBA. I think they're getting interviewed already. Women are getting interviewed, and I think they deserve it. I don't care what they are. I don't care what color you are, what ethnic group you are, what religion you are, or what sex you are. If you're a good coach, you should have the opportunity to coach. It doesn't matter. I think that the NBA and the transition of the game, you're going to see NBA players, NBA girl players playing with men on the same court with men. There are great women basketball players right now in the WNBA that could shoot just as good as the men. Just as good as the men. You watch them on NBA All-Star Weekend when they do that competition with some of the men NBA players. You see it. They're the best players on the court. And yes, women are not as strong. I wouldn't say they're not as fast, but there are women that are just as fast as the men, but maybe not as athletic as the men are. But women are out there right now. There are women just as talented and have the ability to get on the court and compete with the men. And eventually, NBA owners and NBA GMs are going to see that. NFL, and I know everybody's going to say, why would the NFL let a woman player play with these big behemoths, these 330-pound guys? And I'll tell you this right now. There are positions right now in the NFL that women can absolutely play. You're telling me a woman can't be a quarterback in the NFL?
There was a college recruit that got a scholarship. I forget which school it was. It was a smaller school, but she was a safety, and she just got recruited this year.
You're going to tell me that women can't play the quarterback position in the NFL if they're protected? How about a kicker? There are so many positions in the NFL that you don't need to have full contact. And yes, you're going to say, well, quarterback position is full contact. Absolutely. How many times an average quarterback get hit in a game? 10, 11, 12 times?
Depends on the level of your offensive line.
Exactly. So if you build the offensive line, you bring in a woman that can throw the ball 50, 60 yards. What is the difference if it's a girl or a guy?
It's all about skills now in any sport. It's all about judging the skill set. In hockey, it's all about stick skills and puck possession. NBA, it's all about if you can shoot now. It's not really as much of how big you are, how agile you are just in that immediate. It's all about those little skills that make it work. So that's why I think they can, even if they have a size disadvantage or, like you were saying, a strength disadvantage, it can make it work where that could work in particular positions. Like I said earlier, there's a recruit for a safety right now. So again, she has the athleticism for that you have to move around, that needs speed, that needs tackling ability for that. And eventually you'll see it evolve. You're right. It'll probably start with more kickers, punters, and quarterbacks, stuff like that. But don't be surprised if it keeps going further to more speed positions.
I think it helps the game. I think it's going to bring in more fans, more females, and will bring in the game for the better. And everybody keeps thinking, well, the change of the rules. No. Change of different opportunities out there for the women. Women are trying to go overseas to play professional basketball because the WNBA doesn't pay throughout the whole season. They only play during the summertime. So they're not making any money. They have to go overseas to Europe and Spain and Portugal and China to make money when they could be doing it here in the NBA, even on the bench. They're the 12th or 13th guy on the bench is making $4 or $5 million in the NBA. They never see the court. When some of these women are better than these NBA players. Let's be honest. Some of these women basketball players are way better shooter than the NBA players. So, it's not too far back, and I think that the NBA is going to figure that out just as much as I think they figured it out now as far as coaching in the NFL and the NBA. So I think you're going to see it. I think the transition, and I remember when I was a kid, the first NHL goaltender was a girl, and she played for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Was she a good NHL player? No, she wasn't a great NHL player, and she only played I think she only played 2 NHL games, but she had to be good enough to make it and be drafted by the Tampa Bay Lightning.